Hello, I am roaringbug and welcome to my Sims 4 speed build. Today, as you saw in that first image, I am making a Victorian house. And this shell is a shell challenge from Lilsimsie. It's her New Year shell. And if you want it, you can just get the shell off the gallery. Just look for her ID and you can just get it off of there. And I decided that this would be a pretty good shell in order to create a Victorian house. I was in the mood to do a Victorian house, so I made this house entirely from base game. As you can see right here, I'm using pink pillars. I wanted pink to be a color, a pretty predominant color in this Victorian build. Eventually, I decide that the house isn't going to be pink on the outside. It's going to be pink on the inside. And that's why I gave it the very non-creative name of Victorian Pink Interior. So right now, what you're seeing is how I'm trying to figure out how to roof all of these unusual bump outs in this build. So this build has a lot of irregular bump outs, and it has a lot of irregular walls that jut out from the build. And it's not really big. And it was kind of like a weird shape to try and figure out, but it wasn't too bad. I've seen shell challenges that are a lot worse. And I don't know, I've gotten a taste to start builds with shell challenges. So as you can see, what I did is I changed the wall height from small to medium. And now I am choosing all of the raised platform wallpaper. And I went with a short eaves on all of the roof pieces because I didn't think it needed any extending eaves. And I put a one level platform on the top level of the shell just so that I could put that trim over it. And this is when I decided that the exterior of the house would be red. And this is when I changed all of my pillars to like a yellow tinge because I felt it was the closest to white to that particular base game swatch. And I was very fond of that swatch, so I changed it out from pink to yellow. And like I said, it's just got all these unusual little bump outs all around the shell. But, you know, I'm just trying to make this porch, which will help it have that Victorian look, that Victorian style to the build. And, you know, this looks all very nice, but eventually I decide to rotate this house. And you'll see that come up. But right now, this is when I decided I'm going to put a white panel accent on the exterior of the build. It was just a little too red, and I felt that the features of the house were getting washed out. And that's why I put this white boarding wood paneling in order to just make the exterior look a little bit more interesting. And I was playing around with colors. I wasn't too sure if I should go with the white or maybe go with a black to match more with the roof shingles. And, you know, I'm just playing around with it, seeing what works. And I just wanted some of the features to really pop. And that's why I left it with that white on the outside. and I just put white boarding on all of the platforms because I wanted it to look like the deck is all just whitewash boarding, like white planks. And I use these base game windows, which I like because they look pretty realistic, and oddly enough these windows are for small wall height, but I think they're for like the full size for the small wall height, but I think they look better on medium wall height. So yeah, this is when I put this roof piece to look like a tower, and I got this rooster, which is it's like a decorative piece in base game, and I just turned it into a topper and sized it up for that tower. And I was like, okay, this is clearly the front of the build. It is not this side of the build. So yeah, this is when I made that decision to rotate the house. I rotated this house like 2 times. The first time is when I just had the shell, and this time now when I decided that the tower is clearly the front of the build. And I just put this red fencing around the property, and I changed the orientation of the stairs that lead into the backyard. And Lilsimsie's shell challenge has a couple of internal walls, and in her shell challenge she said not to touch those internal walls, so I just tried to incorporate them into the floor plan. So I usually don't know what to do for the landscaping in the front of houses, so I just made these hedge boxes, and I found a bush and I just sized it up. And I was like, yes, sure, good enough. That will be my exterior landscaping. And I just wanted to close up the fence because I don't like it when Sims who are not invited to the property can just go into my backyard and use the pool. So I closed it with this fence, and I thought it was a pretty fancy yet low profile fence. And I put a sidewalk leading up to the front steps, and hopefully you can see the bit of difference between the stone and the sidewalk. And I think most people, they do their stairs outside of the house and then put them in the house. I had a little bit of a struggle trying to figure out the orientation of those stairs, but I saved you from watching me do it. Let's just say that is not the first time I put those stairs down and tried to figure it out. And this is when I noticed that my roofs are clipping. And I'm pretty sure they're clipping because that staircase is touching one of the walls. So it's like messing with the game registering that second floor is a room. So I just took all of the roof pieces that were intersecting on the second floor and just took them all in. And I just boxed up the stairs, and I put these 2 bedrooms on the top floor. I realized I couldn't fit a bathroom, so this only has a bathroom on the first floor. I think it's fine for gameplay because your Sims usually don't spend any time in the bedrooms. They only spend time on the first floor because that's where they can eat and they can do like skill building items. And this is when I decided, if I'm gonna make it pink, it's gonna be pink on the inside. So it started with these kitchen cabinets, and I did like a galley style kitchen. It's just running across this wall in this really small narrow space, and I think it's fine. That's all the space you need really for a kitchen. And I just made a little pink bathroom in the back, and I just filtered for all of the pink wallpaper, and I just looked for all of the base game pink wallpaper, and I just looked for the pink wallpaper that I thought looked fine. And I moved that arch. It's a base game arch. It's the one I usually use. And I made it oriented with the front door. And I used this chevron pattern floor. It's also base game. It used to be really limited until they did the Swatch update. So now it's really good. The only thing about it is that if you're playing from like rags to riches and you're starting with a poor sim, they probably won't be able to afford that. Because I think it's like the second most expensive wooden floor in the game. And, you know, I just made this pretty little pink bedroom. I don't know what kind of sim is going to live here. There really isn't that much space in the inside of this house, so for skill building items, I guess maybe they can have a career, maybe as a writer. It's really up to you what you want to do. If you want, you could probably build an extension to the house if you wanted to. The shape of the build isn't too bad, so it doesn't look too weird. For the child's bedroom, I just made it into a toddler's room, and I just shoved that toddler bed right into that nook for the window, and I just put down all the items you need for a toddler. And in that corner, I just squeezed the tall dresser, and that's like your basic base game dresser. And this room is kind of bare, so I just put these wall decals as artwork. They're pretty cheap in base game. I don't think they're that expensive. And I put the Defender wall light because if you have nightmares enabled, like you have like a child, they'll have nightmares, which I always disable that feature, but you know, it really depends how you want your gameplay to go. This bathroom really isn't anything to write home about. It's just a bathroom with a tub and shower combo. And I just put a little bit of clutter because it's the only bathroom. I figured, you know, they'd probably store something in that tiny bathroom. I put the living room area in that little corner. The one thing I regret is that I didn't put a fireplace in this house. And because this house is kind of small, it was hard to fit a fireplace in the house. Fireplaces aren't really necessary, but if you have seasons, it's good if you are playing with Winterfest, and Father Winter only visits your house if you have a chimney. This front foyer, I turned it into a office space, but you'll see that later on. Right now, I'm just putting down random decoration, and that's because the gallery, the catalog is like all over the place, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping around putting detailed items. It's just that the catalog is kind of mixed up. It's really hard to find things unless like you know specifically what you're looking for. So that is actually one of my more favorite base game desks. I don't care that it's base game, it's actually a pretty good desk. And I put one little accent chair in that tiny little living room area. And I added a little bit more clutter in the kitchen, just, you know, some pots and pans and some spotlights over the kitchen area. I wasn't too sure if it was white, that's why I grabbed it, because it's kind of hard to see from the lighting. And I added one tiny window because it's a little sad to have a kitchen without a window. And for this foyer, I put in a matching pink couch just because if your sim has company, they'll probably want to talk to you if your sim is on the computer. Yeah, I played around with that rug. I wasn't too sure if I wanted it outside the house or inside the house. And I added some lights and a stereo. And I put in curtains. The curtains, they're not really necessary, but for a house like this, that's more in a traditional style, I feel that they were kind of necessary for the look of the house. And now I moved on to the backyard. So I put a chess table on the side of the porch and a barbecue and a outdoor seating area so your sims can plop their barbecue somewhere. The weird thing about the sims is that your sims always like to barbecue. It doesn't matter if it's like frigid out or they're not dressed properly, they'll go out there and they'll try to barbecue. And I wanted to give them a swimming pool, and I made this swimming pool here, and I put this debug tree. All the landscaping is debug items now in the backyard. And for those who don't know, debug items are all of the decorative pieces that you can see around the world, but it's not in the regular Build and Buy catalog. And if you just Google it, you can just see how to reach those cheats. I didn't save them in this speed build, but it's just some commands that you just type in. But if you are playing on PlayStation, you're going to be out of luck because you can only access them. Well, no, that's not true. I think you can access them on PlayStation, but I think it's the commands are a little different. So the two things I usually forget is that I did put down is the mailbox and the trash can. And I put down these pillars to define the contours of the house. I normally wouldn't bother, but I was checking how the house looked from the front view, and because the house is so red, the angles were getting lost, and I wanted this house to look pretty on all sides. And I put these pool lights in the pool and a ladder, but your sims don't really need a ladder. They can get out on their own. And I put my very light terrain paint. I'm not really heavy-handed when it comes to terrain paint. I just do a little bit. Yeah, so I looked at the house and I realized it looked really weird. So technically I didn't delete a wall, I just turned it into a spandrel. And, I think that's fine. Technically the wall is still there, I did not delete it. But I just thought it would look better. And I think it does. And now I'm in my screenshots. So if you like this build, please like, subscribe, or leave me a comment. Thank you for watching. Bye.